Hi, friends. Today we're going to read George discovers Germs. You know what germs are? Can you see them? No. Can you smell them? Nope. Can you feel them? Nope. But they're there. And sometimes we get sick because of germs. Sometimes not. But let's see what Curious George discovers about germs. So I'm going to share my screen. Curious George discovers germs. Let's see what happens with Curious George. George was a good little monkey and always very curious. But sometimes even good little monkeys find themselves not feeling so well. How did George know he was sick? The story starts with spaghetti sauce. George's favorite day of the week was sauce day at Chef Pizgetti's restaurant. He always gave Chef Pischetti some tips to make the best sauce. But today, instead of being able to taste the chef's new Molto Jolto sauce, George couldn't taste anything. And there's a little thing on the side, and it says, "Did you know when you say you can't taste something because you have a cold, it's really because you can't smell it? Your sense of smell is responsible for what you taste. So when your nose is stuffed up, it's hard to smell or taste much of anything." Chef Pischetti sent George home, and the man with the yellow hat sent George to bed. Then he took George's temperature. "Fever, stuffy nose, clammy paws," said the man. "You're definitely fighting a germ, George." "Do you know what a germ is?" George was curious. The man got out a book. There was a picture of a funny-looking blob. "This is a bad germ, George. There are good germs and bad germs. A bad germ is making you sick," the man explained. "Germs are very small. They can be found anywhere in your body. Your nose, your mouth, your stomach, your lungs. But that's enough biology for today. Tired monkeys need their rest." And then it says in the side, it says, "Did you know the word biology means the study of life and living things? If you're a biologist, you might work with plants, animals, or the human body. Someday you'll study biology in school." George might have been sick, but he was still curious. Where did the germ come from? And more important, how could he get rid of it? He was still wondering when he dozed off. And look, his cat has stayed with him all day, and he's dozing off too. Soon George was dreaming. In his dream, he was very small, like a germ. He and his pal Noki were going to take a trip inside George's sleeping body to fight off the bad germs. And it says, "Did you know the man with the yellow hat said that some germs are good and some are bad? That means that in our body right now are some bacteria or germs that help your body instead of making you sick. Good germs can help make vitamins that your body needs. You can even get some of these good bacteria by eating favorite foods such as yogurt and cheese." George and Noki zoomed into sleeping George's mouth and landed right on his tongue. It was soft and squishy. And there was music playing. They hadn't expected that. Where could it be? It seemed to be coming from his nose. When George and Noki got to the nose, they saw a funny looking blob strumming a guitar and singing, "I'll make you sniff and I'll make you sneeze. You won't be smelling that smelly cheese. We'll be making you sweat and making you squirm because that's how germs are being germs." Oh my. George could hardly believe his eyes. "I'm Toots, the singing germ," he introduced himself, "and these are my backup singers, the germettes." Says, "Did you know when you are sick with a cold germ, the inside of your nose becomes inflamed or irritated and swollen and produces mucus that stuffs your nose up and makes your nose run? Your body makes mucus all the time, but when you're sick, there's more of it. Sometimes it helps to use a humidifier, take a hot bath, and drink a lot of fluids." Seeing Toots in his nose made George upset. He wanted that germ out of him, but Toots didn't want to go. In fact, he took the germettes and headed to George's lungs, laughing and singing all the way. George and Noki chased the germs to the lungs. George noticed that when the lungs got smaller, air went out, and when the lungs got bigger, a rush of air came in. He was watching himself breathe. It says, "Put your hand just below your belly button." Take a deep breath in. Does your tummy get bigger? That's because your lungs are filling up with air. Now breathe all the way out. What happens then? Try breathing fast or very slow. See how your body changes when you do this. Can you do that? Can you put your hand on your tummy? Okay, let's breathe in. Did you see how your body changed? Yeah. What if you do this? Right? That's different than if you take a deep breath. Right? So it all does different things in there. It says George's lungs gave him an idea. He remembered something he saw in the germ book. Coughing and sneezing are the lungs' way of doing their jobs and trying to force out the bad germs. All George had to do was sneeze toots right out of his body. It says, did you know it's really hard to sneeze with your eyes open? Your body sneezes when it's trying to get something out of your nose. A germ, dust, pet hair, pollen, anything. Closing your eyes is just a reflex your body makes when a sneeze happens, the same as when the doctor tests your reflexes on your knee. Do you ever try to sneeze with your eyes open? I don't think you can do it. George and Noki chased Toots and the germettes all the way to George's nose. Then, with one big sneeze, thanks to some well-positioned tickling, out went Toots and germettes out into the air looking for a new place to live. A few days later, George was feeling much better. He had taken lots of naps, drunk lots of water and juice, and sneezed out those germs. He could even smell again, but it was clear where Toots and the germettes had found a new home. George's friend, the man with the yellow hat, was sick. So that's where the germs went. The man had taken such good care of George when he was sick. Now George wanted to help his friend get better too. So he made some soup. And it says, did you know eating chicken soup is good for a cold? Why? Some doctors say the hot soup helps clear your stuffy nose, and the broth provides necessary fluid when you're sick. Other doctors think that some of the ingredients in chicken soup help with the inflammation that causes your nose to get all stuffy in the first place. Whatever the case, soup is tasty, and eating it when you're sick is a good thing. George brought the soup to the man's bed. Thanks, George, the man said, but when he tried the soup, he couldn't taste anything. He's all stuffy now. George wanted to taste it, but his friend stopped him. George, don't use that spoon. It might be covered with my cold germs. You don't want to get sick again, do you? The man asked. George definitely did not want to get sick again. That made George curious. How else did germs get from one person to another? He looked at his germ book. George knew that the germs were in him just a few days ago, but his friend had not used George's spoon or fork or cup. Do you think the man caught George's germs when he sneezed or coughed? And it says, did you know if you don't have a tissue handy, you could cough or sneeze into your elbow? I bet you were all taught that, weren't you, huh? Yeah, that's how we do it. If you cough or sneeze into your hand, the germs will be on your hand. Then when you touch a doorknob, a sink, pens, utensils, or even someone else's hand, then you spread the germs. And even worse, if you don't cover up at all, your germs can go really far. Sometimes scientists say that a single sneeze can travel 100 miles or 160 kilometers per hour and spread over 100,000 germs. That's a lot of germs. Looking at the book made George sleepy. He drifted into another dream. Now he and Noki were inside the man with the yellow hat's body. There was that music again, coming from the man's stomach. They needed to find Toots so they could kick him out again. Well, I've been lots of places, floating free as a wheeze, riding on your silverware or flying on sleeves. I played in many people all across this great big land, especially in the folks who don't like to wash their hands. Because soap makes me wiggle and soap makes me sneer. One sign of soap and this Toots is out of here. If George heard Toots correctly, getting his friend to wash his hands would be a good way to help him get rid of the germs and feel better. But Toots and the germettes remembered George and knew they needed to get away from him. We're off to play in another body, Toots said. They were going to infect someone else. Get ready to hop on that hand when he wipes his nose, yelled Toots to his germettes. George didn't want the germs inside his friend, but he didn't want anyone else to be sick either. He had to stop them. Did you know, even though George saw a picture of a germ in a book, germs are invisible to humans. They're so small that you can only see them by looking through a microscope. Germs can hide on just about anything a person touches. So it's important to use healthy habits like using tissues, washing your hands, and staying home from school when you're sick. When the bell rang and the man got up to answer the door, Toots and the Germettes were ready for a new body, Professor Wiseman. She had also made soup for her sick friend. George and Noki zoomed out after the germs and landed with a thud on Professor Wiseman's hand. The germs were startled. Oh, it feels like something's crawling on my hands, Professor Wiseman said. I should probably wash them inside. Did you know everyone, kids and adults, should wash their hands with soap before they eat, after they use the bathroom, and when they're through playing with toys, using public transportation like a bus, or visiting public places? We use our hands to touch all kinds of things. That's why it's important to keep them out of your mouth and wash them often. Professor Wiseman went to the bathroom and washed Toots and the Germettes right down the drain. Not only had George chased those germs out of his friend, he and some soap had stopped them from getting Professor Wiseman sick too. When George woke up from his dream, he felt great, but he went straight to the bathroom to wash his hands and feet just in case. After 2 icky adventures with Toots, this healthy little monkey wanted to stay that way. Why do you think he washed his feet too? Do we wash our feet when we wash our hands? No. I think he did because monkeys are different, right? Sometimes they pick up things with their feet just like they do with their hands. Yeah. And then it says the 5-second rule. Uh-oh. It says if you drop a piece of food on the ground, do you ever hear someone say, pick it up quick, 5-second rule? Often people call out the 5-second rule because they think if you get food off the floor quickly enough, there won't be any germs on it. But did you know that scientists have done studies to show that even in less than 5 seconds, germs can make their way onto your food and into your body? Wow. So you really got to be careful. Oh, and look, there's a recipe for the soup that he made for his friend. Oh, and healthy habits. It talks about making sure you wash your hands and making sure that you eat things like apples that help to keep you healthy. And can you think of any other ones? What else keeps you healthy? Yeah, getting lots of sleep and drinking lots of water and getting some exercise, maybe going out to play, and dressing right for the weather, right? So if it's snowing out, you don't want to go out in your shorts, right? And taking vitamins. Some people do that. And visiting the doctor regularly. So there's lots of ways that you can help to stay healthy. All right, so that was a good story about George, wasn't it? Yeah, he learned lots of things about germs. And he even helped the man with the yellow hat because he needed to learn some things too, didn't he? And what was the most important thing you think he learned? I think he learned to wash his hands, which was really good because that helps to keep those germs away, doesn't it? All right, I hope you have a great day, friends. All right, talk to you soon, and I hope that you don't get sick. All right, bye-bye.